Oh, thank you.
Stony, the road we trod, across the sands of time, through turbulent waves, from the bellies of beasts to underground railroads, migration, from Selma bridges to Darfur highways, from streets where we march to beats that move us, from the fire of protest to the fire of celebration, of carnival, of junkanoo, of festival, anting anting. If we can't walk, we run. If we can't run, we fly. We make a way to make our way. From hashtags to hand drops, from live streams to living rooms, from Lego streets to London blocks, to every corner we claim as home. Every step, a link. Every link, a lifeline. Everywhere we go, there we are, as we've always been.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Everybody good? Great. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Rhonda Patrick. I'm a board member of ADAMA. I want to welcome everybody today for our first program for our Art Salon series for 2026. So thank you guys for being here. The ADAMA Arts Salon, so for those of you who are not aware, is a conversation series featuring contemporary artists, curators, scholars, cultural practitioners from across the African diaspora. Through these gatherings, we create space for critical dialogue, creative exchange, and meaningful community connection. Let me come in here so everybody could see me. We host the Art Salon here at Pittsburgh Yards alongside exhibitions and other creative spaces throughout the year. So we're pleased to share ADAMA's current exhibition, which is called Spinning a Yarn. It's now here on view at Pittsburgh Yards, so if you haven't had a chance to view it after the salon, please do so. And we invite you to experience that during your visit. So Spinning a Yarn draws viewers into layered conversations around storytelling, memory, and material, exploring how narratives are constructed, persevered, and reimagined across generations. The work's on view after moments of intimate reflection alongside expansive cultural dialogue, creating opportunities for connection and discovery. And so I'm going to share just a few bios, of course, with our two beautiful artists here today. So I want to first introduce Lynn Marshall Linnemeier, a visual artist whose interdisciplinary practice centers on memory, place, and African American cultural history, with a sustained commitment to community-based and publicity-engaged art. Working across photography, mixed media, and site-specific installation, her projects often unfold over time and in collaboration with communities, institutions, and cultural organizations. Please welcome Ms. Linnemeier. Ms. Ayana Ross, as a visual artist, her work combines traditional oil painting methods and figurative realism with ornamentation as a visual language that revokes nostalgia, elevates her subjects, and provides historical and cultural context through layered narratives, exploring intergenerational themes. Ross holds an MA in painting from the Savannah College of Art and Design, and her work has been exhibited nationally, including a solo exhibition at the Muskegon Museum of Art, the Reading Public Museum, and most recently, the Museum of Contemporary Art of Georgia as a 2024-2025 Working Artist Project Fellow. Ross was recognized as the 2021 Bennett Prize winner, a 2024 Mellon Arts and Practitioner Fellow through Yale Center for the Study of Race, Indigeneity, and Transnational Migration, and a 2025 Atlanta Artadia Awardee. Please welcome Ms. Ross. And I will now turn it over to Esohe Galbreath, who will begin our conversation. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all so much for being here with us today. Thank you for giving some of your Sunday afternoon for this wonderful conversation. I am absolutely elated to be in conversation with Ms. Linnemeier and Ms. Ross today. We went through, or Rhonda went through all of the accolades, but I am most excited that they are ADAMA's 2026 Flower and Seed honoree. And it is absolutely divine because I don't know that we could have planned it any better, but between the universe and God and our ancestors, they saw it fit for the Flower and Seed honoree because we don't choose them in tandem. They're two different selection processes. And to see their work in conversation with each other, again, I don't think we could have asked for a better experience. So thank you both for accepting that honor. So I will get started. It's important for me when we're having conversation to know a little bit about who you are, and that goes beyond the CV and the resume. But if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are from a background perspective. Who is Ayana?
I guess the best way to start is I am the granddaughter of Francis Vann, who transitioned a few years back, but is from South Georgia. And I spent my early childhood in South Georgia, in Baxley. From there, I went on to live in Macon, Middle Georgia, Warner Robins, graduated from college, studied fashion design, worked in New York for a little while, up until 9/11. And that was probably the first major event in my life that caused me to see the world I exist in differently. I came back to Georgia, because Georgia, in my narrative, is home, but it's also like the place that I oftentimes return to after going out there and doing whatever. So I came back to Georgia, got into education, and taught. Actually, I started teaching elementary, and then transitioned into art education to try to synchronize my lived experience and my area of interest with my work. I should say, though, I've always done art. From my childhood, I was primarily drawing and interested in creating. But started teaching art. I taught art for about 12 years, full time. I am also a mother of 4, and while I am on the edge of being an empty nester, my journey as an artist started with them. They were a part of, I watched my art career and my babies grow up together. So they were a part of me doing my first exhibition. They were helping me. So they've always been there. But yeah, so mother of 4, I am a wife. I am very much someone who is about family. I'm very family oriented. My pillars are probably, aside from my husband and my children, my mother, my grandmother, my aunt who's here, and my cousin whose spirit is always with me. And I pretty much live, sleep, and eat my practice. That's all I do. Lifestyle-wise, I'm actually not that interesting because that's all I do. I'm accustomed to living with my work. So even at times when I have had a studio outside of my home, I've always had my work existing with me. And I think that's a pretty good synopsis of who I am.
It's an amazing synopsis.
Okay.
Thank you. Miss Lynn.
Yes. My roots are actually not in Georgia. They are in North Carolina. I grew up in a tiny town, Southern Pines, North Carolina, surrounded by, probably as much family as I could stand at the moment. at that moment. I left home at the age of 17, took my first flight on an airplane to Frankfurt, Germany. My mother had told my sister that if she didn't come and get me, that my mom was going to kill me. So my sister sent me a ticket to Germany. So I spent my senior year of high school in Germany. That sister would be here today. I guarantee you, if she were alive, she was my, oh God, I can't even talk about her. She passed last year, and she was the light of my life. That little flame is gone out, but she's got other kids, and we're just trying to, be us, but we sure do miss her, and I miss her very much. She practically raised me from age 14 up until she transitioned. I spent most of my life in Atlanta. And driving from Gwinnett County, into the city today, I just really noticed how Atlanta had changed. It's like so big. And it got so big that I had to leave and go back to my roots in North Carolina. I'm now a farmer. I do a little bit of art, but I do mostly farming on my little half-acre land. I can't think of, that's the essence of me. If it's not art, if I'm not making art, then I'm in my garden. And at this point, I'm so anxious to get back because I'm just so afraid the planting season will be beyond me and I'll miss it. There's nothing that I love better than watching the changes in a garden and being outside. I've always been like that. And since I've slowed down slightly, a little bit, it's just a point of joy.
One of the things that I read about was that the name of your studio, Skybox Studios,
Oh,
Skytop Studio, was named after your grandmother's juke joint.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the juke joint?
Okay, so this is the story I was told. I have my aunt, I've got it recorded somewhere. But my grandmother, Pauline Hainsworth, I'm a Hainsworth, how about that? Doesn't that sound fancy?
And you are?
We some rough riders, though. The Hainsworths are some rough riders, okay? But my grandmother, Pauline, my grandfather was a landscaper. Pauline was a housekeeper, and she was also a cook. She would prepare meals in her kitchen and put them on her wagon that had a fancy top on it, horse-drawn. And my sister tells this story about when she was little, and Big Mama, she used to call her, would put the food in the back of the wagon, and they would go to different places where they were building up the town. Now, most of you probably don't know about Southern Pines. Southern Pines sounds like kind of backwards, but really it is a resort area. And if anybody in here plays golf, you know Pinehurst, the site of the U.S. Open. So that's the area that I came from. Very, very rich people on one side and very, very poor people on the other. So my grandmother had this wagon, and she would go and take food to the men. So, yeah.
So that was a story that was passed to you. You didn't have a lot of familiarity with that grandmother.
No. My grandmother died when I was 6, maybe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she died. She had a stroke, and she died when I was 6. But she came to live with us just before she passed away. And I thought, because I like fairy tales, So when she came home, she was in a wheelchair, and I remember my mother wheeled in, and I was so excited because she really lived across the street. But this time she was coming to live with us. And all I could think of was my fairy godmother is coming to see me. And as soon as she came in the door, I jumped on top of her. My mother was like, get off, get off, get off. But she was kind of like my fairy grandmother, godmother, yeah.
Ayana, you speak a lot about your grandmother. Can you tell us a little bit about how she's influenced your work and your practice?
Okay. I guess the main reason I reference my grandmother a lot and how she influences my practice is an understanding of the amount of, I'm hesitant to use the word strength, but strength she carried to live the life she lived. And the stories, while they were not always shared, that she embodied. So for context, my grandmother, who was, like I said, in South Georgia, in Appleton County, her grandfather was enslaved there. And so that's why my origin story kind of starts there. And then her father, well, he ended up, after emancipation, acquiring a lot of land, which was then used for establishing the first black school. I'm looking to my aunt because she's not, and this is our family historian. So she has to give me, like, okay, you're on track. First black school, first black church. And oftentimes, from what I remember, my grandmother would reference the things, and she should have been, that she was proud of, that, he did, these men did. But I guess when I look at her and I think about, yeah, but even after your husband passed away, you maintained a farm and you had a home. And then I remember as a child going in the backyard, and it was like, of course, in my mind, it's bigger than it probably was, but like a Garden of Eden, because there were muscadines, and there were collards, and there were all of these things. I could just walk around the house and pick up pecans or pecans, whatever you prefer. Or go get berries off the bush. And I don't know, I guess as I have grown into my adulthood, that's like super impressive. And she was a hospital tech in South Georgia, which is kind of crazy. Always upheld a standard, I think, and she set the tempo to me for the family in terms of what's acceptable, what's not. Education was always a big deal. How we spoke to each other mattered. She taught me wherever I go, always pack a dress, because you never know. Just like the little things. And even this morning, I was sitting at the table, having a cup of coffee, a glass of orange juice, and taking my multivitamins. And I felt very much like my grandmother in that moment. Because I remember seeing her do that. And I remember one time she came to visit me and she was doing that, and she was just praying. And she was praying out loud. And it was the most sacred thing I'd ever experienced. So yeah, and she had a little edge.
Little firecracker?
She'll let you know. But I understood, and I understand even more that that's required to exist in this world. You got to have a little bit of both. You got to be able to have both to maintain your sanity and preserve yourself. And then there are things I don't even know. So yeah, I definitely esteem her high. And when I think about her story, it just kind of echoes in other people that I see. Because it's not just, it used to be that my work centered very much on my family. It's not really the case anymore. It's kind of how I see certain things that I'm familiar with, that because I've witnessed it in my family, that I see in other families and other people, and how we all are having this human experience we're trying to make sense of. And we're all trying to, it's this continuity thing that I'm trying to grapple with. Like, what's the point? There are these people that transition, and we carry on, and then there's the children. So what are we taking from them that we're holding on to, that we're passing on, and how are we getting better with each round? So, long answer, but that's, I guess that's how I
No. It's, in looking at your work, I find a comfort in both of your works. And yesterday, my husband's a high school art teacher, and he brought about a dozen students and some young adults to see the exhibit. And he said it was really digestible for them. And I countered that while I understand it being digestible, it was also really familiar. It's really comforting. And that's what I feel when I see your work. And so when you talk about family and the commonalities between your grandmother, when you talk about your grandmother, I hear you talking about my grandmother. When you talk about, you know, your garden and you talk about your family, I hear my family members. I know the people who took in kids, right? That may not have been theirs, but the path wasn't what our family wanted the path to be, so we course corrected. And that's what I see when I look at your work, is that familiarity. Lynn, a question for you. You both have been educators and still are educators, right? Whether you're in a classroom or not. But how, even here, because I'm just sitting here learning, happy to be at the feet of all of this amazing knowledge. But Lynn, how did your time in the classroom specifically inform your artistry?
I was able to steal a few ideas from a couple of students. Nah, I mean, I to be quite honest, I was scared to death to teach. As much as I admire teachers, and they are, you know, way up there. And I was afraid to teach. And I was teaching, you know, I've mostly taught in colleges. And I said, Lord have mercy, suppose I tell these kids something wrong and they go out and, you know, do something stupid. But I remember a former teacher of mine, he said, who would you rather learn photography from? A person like yourself, or, and he gave me an alternative, and I sat there and I started thinking about it. And he said, would you rather work in doing something else that, you know, didn't really, you know, use your expertise? And I was like, But teaching photography was just scary to me, because I wasn't sure I even knew what aperture and all that stuff meant. You know, I think I used my experience as opposed to teaching technical. I taught part technical, but you know, my experience has been in stuff like non-silver photography and stuff like that. And so I would try to incorporate those things. I know when I was at Spelman and I was teaching, I taught using the computer as a creative tool. And so that gave me the latitude to be able to introduce to students non-silver processes that they normally would not use. So, and how to use those things in mixed media. So it's like a mixture of analog and digital. So
I was talking to Miss Sue Ross maybe a week or so ago, and she was telling me about the impact you had on this cystography group.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And she said you taught them so much, and of course it went beyond photography.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that time and how it, again, may have influenced your own artistry?
Well, you know, cystography was started by my best friend. I mean, my best friend, one of them, anyway.
Can you call out her name for us?
Of course, Sheila Turner. Sheila Turner was the epitome of photography. She ate, slept, drank, pooped photography. And she stayed, I mean, she would come over to my house, and that's all we talked about was photography. How to get this lighting, what to do with this, what to do with that. I see Warren Fletcher over there. You thought you was going to sneak in, didn't you? He's one of my favorite photographers. Warren's work, unbelievable. But Sheila pulled together this group of African-American women. I think it was you and Frenita came up with the name, right? Am I telling this right? Okay, Sue came, all right, let's get it straight now, because I get it mixed up. Sue came up with the name, Frenita came up with the logo. So that's how we got Sistography. And, you know, we were just all over the place just showing photographs. Having an influence on my work was just like, okay, we're going to do this show. Sheila would come, hey, man, come on. I got a good idea. And off we go into another show. Sheila, bless her heart, she passed away due to breast cancer. 2 weeks before she passed, I went to pick her up. Do you know what she was trying to do? Go help some kids in West End at that gallery. I can't think of the name of it. She had organized this exhibit for these children. And I mean, she's sitting in my car dying, practically. And she's like, I just got to go by. I got to make an appearance. And that's who she was.
She was living.
She was living. She lived right up until she passed. She really did. And she's another one. Here again, you get older, you start missing folks. You know, people start leaving you. And, you know, it's a sad thing, but she passed on. But she lived her life 100%. And every time I start to, start a new project, that number 444 comes up, and I know that's her. She visits me often with that number, 444. I found it in Mississippi when we was hanging out together. We were role warriors, man. We were like, we were bad children, too. Man.
So much greatness.
Man. That thing at the airport, did y'all ever see? If you go to the airport, it was on the International Concourse.
Concourse E, right?
Yeah, it's on Concourse E. Yeah, and they got that was, me and Sheila, it's okay to say it now because we already got the funding and spent it. But I wrote the grant so that we could go to juke joints. We spent the whole year visiting juke joints and taking pictures.
It's a beautiful exhibit.
I was like,
research and development.
Right. I said, man, we gotta make some fun out of this. So we gonna do juke joints. So we did, and then Sheila, after that, she popped off in the blues. She just and I was in the blues already because I was in Mississippi. And you can't be in Mississippi and not be in the blues. It just doesn't happen. So I was already into the blues, and then she got into the blues, and then she started photographing, and that's just one adventure in my lifetime as an artist, and you don't want to get me started.
No, we appreciate the stories. Please get started and keep going. Ayana, I was going to save this for a little later, but I think now is a good time. What is a question that you would ask of Ms. Linnemeier?
Oh, okay. 40 years as an artist is quite an accomplishment. And I wonder if you have any advice on longevity, on sustaining a practice, keeping it fresh, as I am in the earlier part of my 40-plus year journey of my practice.
Well, it's like I always tell people, you got a passion. Just follow it, I don't think when I first saw your work, it was like, oh, this person really likes to paint. I can't see you as a person who would drop that.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Right, okay. About the only thing I could say would be to explore as many materials as you trust yourself. I would say just stay with it And you already know that. There's nothing that I could really tell you at this point. No. Well, drink plenty of water. Eat good food. Veggies, lots of veggies, which I don't. I like fried. This is one of those do as I say, not as I do moments. Eat. It does. It does work. It works because I don't care. I mean, it does. I'm not so concerned. I've never been concerned with wealth. You know, art has always been in front of that. So having said that, I've spent most of my life as a poor person. It's all right. You know, black folks, we used to poor. We do poor better than most people. I put it that way. But, you know, yeah. I think you know where you're going. And you have to follow your heart. You know, when things don't feel good, then they're not. If something doesn't feel right, it's not. And there's nothing that you can do or twist or turn to make it right. If it doesn't feel right, then it's not right for you. And I've managed to trip up on that a couple of times, and I think, wow, I finally got it. And then the same situation comes up, and I do the same thing all over again. Eventually, you'll learn. Eventually, you'll get it. But you know, you're a painter. You know. Only thing I can say is explore that a little bit more and see where it takes you. Follow your heart. Is that erudite enough?
No, you gave it to us all, so thank you. Mm-hmm. Ayana, if you could, when you talk about time and it not being this linear thing, right, and this exploration through the storytelling of your work, if you could offer your younger self a piece of advice, and as you look towards your future self, what you want her to know, and share that with us.
I'm just going to repeat what I heard Erykah Badu say. Believe in yourself from the very start. That would probably be what I would have told my younger self. Just believe in yourself from the very start. I am literally watching myself grow into the exact person I was when I was like 8 years old. I used to walk around with a towel on my head, like swinging my hair. And I looked in the mirror one day, I'm like, girl, that's you. I used to walk. We lived out in the country when I was little. That's what it was called, out in the country. And I used to walk on the dirt road. And even now between sessions, because I try to split my day up, I spend a couple of hours sometimes doing administrative work, and then I'll go for a long walk and then go to the studio. And it's just like, it was me when I was a kid. I am literally the exact same person. I have the same likes. I have the same interests. I'm like rediscovering things that I knew of myself as a child. So it's something about the density of this world. We get out in these streets and it somehow convinces us that we're something else, or we should try to be something else, or it should look a certain way, but that's not real. And so if I could go back in time, I would tell her, you are enough, right here, right now. This is it. Just grow in that. And then for my future self, it's the same. It's the same. Like when you see me 20, 30 years from now, I'm probably gonna be the same. And I love that.
I love that for you.
Well, thank you. So yeah, just believe in yourself from the very start. Full stop.
Leah.
Yep. Yeah.
I get so excited when I get to ask you a question because I just don't know where it's going. I don't know where it's going, but I'm looking forward to the ride. Of all of the pieces that you have exhibited, and I don't want to distill it down to what's your favorite piece, But what piece excites you the most? Whether it's based on how you feel about it, looking at it, thinking about your creation of the piece, or how people respond to the work. And I hope we all get an opportunity to go back in, take a peek at the exhibit after you share this with us. What piece is that in there for you?
In this gallery?
Yes.
Boy, oh boy, that's real hard. Because so many of them, you know, they represent different stages in my life. Like the annotated Topsy series. That was one of the first series that where I would use a novel, you know, Harry Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin. And this is really weird. Okay, so the annotated Topsy, there are two pieces that are in there. There's a good Topsy and a bad Topsy. And both good and bad are represented in this exhibit. There are 4 other panels to that piece. But it was about Topsy. God, if you've ever read the novel, I hate to have to go through this again. Anyway, Topsy was adopted by a woman, by a Southern planter who picked her up in a bar. She was being abused. And he bought her and bought her back and said, okay, I'm going to give you to my cousin or aunt or somebody so you can show her a better way to live, you know, so you can train her up to be civilized, in other words. So what you see in there, there's Topsy trying to be good, and then the inner Topsy trying, you know, is basically bad. In the series, Ophelia, that's her name. Ophelia was the aunt's name. She takes Topsy back north, okay, from the south, back north, whenever her cousin dies or some crap like that. And when she gets up north, she says, oh, okay, I have this beautiful doll for you. Okay, you take this doll, and Topsy was like, oh, God, what a beautiful doll. But in the next frame, she torn the doll apart. And she could not understand why she was having this push and pull between good and bad, but it was what she had been taught. You know, if you've read the novel, it was what she had been taught. And it was like my sister said, my oldest sister, who was a social worker, she said, Topsy is kind of like African Americans in this country. We are adopted children that America doesn't want. We are adopted children that America does not want. So, yeah. The other thing about that, second thing, the young lady that plays Topsy in this piece was actually abused as a child. I don't know what happened to her, but there was a very unfortunate incident that happened whenever I was photographing this young lady who was from an area of Atlanta called Reynoldstown. And my ex-husband and I, now dead ex-husband, he had her family come to our house to talk to her about what she was doing in the streets. I mean, this is the extent of documentary photography. When you really, really, really get into it, you wind up being involved in some people's families. Now, let's fast forward a few more years. I go to Australia on a fellowship. Hop out the car, go into the Tandanya National Aboriginal Cultural Center. I hop out and go into the center. What's the first exhibit they have? It's on children who have been stolen from their parents, their mixed kids. And the first person that was stolen, her name was Topsy. They named her Topsy, put her in a cage, in a con. It blew me away. It absolutely blew me away. So if there was any piece in that whole show, that would be one of them.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I want to go back right now and see it, but I'll wait till we finish talking.
But they have, you know, I've had so many experiences like that during my travels. where you go to a place, you enmesh yourself with the people, you're not, it's not this thing of how you wink, it's just how you impact other people's lives, how much you love is really what it is. And I have been in so many communities and I have loved so many people, until I'm just thankful that my 40 years has been about that. Going into different African American communities, learning the people, listening to their stories, and then taking those stories, coming back and then transforming those stories into something visual where they are uplifted.
Thank you. Ayana, same question for you.
Oh, I don't even remember the question.
I'll run it back.
I don't
run it
either.
back.
I was so engrossed.
That's why I have this book.
Gotcha.
So, your favorite piece in the exhibit, and it doesn't have to be favored,
Right.
But just the piece that you enjoy the most, eliciting the response from people, what memory it takes you back to when you created it. And I know this answer could be different on a different day, but what is it today?
Right. Maybe today, if I give an answer, it might be Parable of the Seer. It's not the only one, but it would be maybe today. Just because that piece is, it's in the direction I'm going, and B, the way it came about through literature, reading Octavia Butler's Parable series and being inspired by that, as well as looking at the world, the ever-changing world, and all of these events and things that are going on. As Rod and I were talking before about, it's just so much happening all the time. And you literally have to disconnect just to give your mind a chance to rest, because we're not meant for all of this content and information. But when I painted that parable piece, what I was trying to tap into is, in the midst of all that is happening, there are some things that we do need to pay attention to, that our survival is predicated on our awareness. And in that piece, I'm thinking about, the child in the painting is the seer. And as I was painting it, also, I guess another thing that stands out to me, as I was painting it, these were things that were actually happening. The bird flu became an issue, and my neighbor had chickens. That's why you like the chicken. And my neighbor had chickens, and their chicken kept getting out. And so I just incorporated that in the painting. There were the fires, there were, I'm trying to think what else I have in there, that leisure space travel. Like, this is the time we're living in where the wealth gap is so great that people are just going on vacation in space.
Or submarines.
Or submarines, right, that part. For my paintings, I always have two names. My name that I keep in the back of my mind, and the forward-facing name. And the name of just, the name that I had in mind for that one was At First Whitey on the Moon. You remember that poem? I remember that. Yeah, so, yeah, and then it's a reflection in the car towards the bumper of an ICE vehicle going by. It is so easy. I was sitting, and I probably ruined lunch with my girls yesterday. We went prom dress shopping, and so we stopped and had lunch, and we were sitting there eating our burgers, and it was so good. I had a turkey burger. I was like, man, this is really good. My daughter's like, yeah, the fries are good. I said, think about it. We sitting here just having lunch. They just dropping bombs in Iran. Like, yep. This is, yep. That's crazy. And then we just get up and we just go to the grocery store. Or we just, we still got to go to work tomorrow. You still got to turn in that assignment. There's such a major disconnect. And at some point, I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know who, we got to snap out of this fog that we're in. This is not sustainable. So to me, that's where I am today. So that piece is most akin to that for me.
So you both seem to read quite a bit. And Ayana, with your work, as I went back and I was looking at different artist talks that you've given, and even when we visited the studio, every piece has so many different stories within it. Have you ever thought about literary work, a book, short stories, like I know that you write in preparing for the pieces, but something to be shared and published?
That's real sweet. But see, the way my family is, like, we have writers in the family. I am but a reflection of a reflection of a reflection of what these people do. So I play to my strength. But thank you, though.
Miss Lynn? Yes? What are you reading these days?
What am I reading?
Just coming back from the books and the authorship and the stories and how it influences your work, what are you reading?
Yeah, well, right now I'm reading four things, really. The first is the Washington Post in the morning with my yogurt and strawberries.
Okay, I see you helping.
The second is the New York Times that I also read with my yogurt and strawberries. The third is Culpability, which was a book, I can't remember that man's name, but it's very good. It looks at AI and all this stuff. It was in Oprah's book club.
Okay.
Okay. And the fourth thing that I'm reading was suggested to me by Valerie Boyd, another dear friend of mine who has transitioned, and boy, I love Valerie so much. But Valerie, I went to a writing workshop with her, and she said, what you should do, you should write about your work and your travels. Make it a memoir. So the other day, I was in there looking on my bookshelf, and I've been looking for this book that Valerie told me to get, and I've been digging around, and I couldn't find the book. So I've been asked by the Juneteenth folks in Red Springs if I would cover Zora Neale Hurston. Because they know everywhere I go, I'm always talking about Zora Neale Hurston, because Zora Neale Hurston is my muse. So I was digging around, and the book fell out of nowhere, because it's a tiny book, and it's called Thinking About Memoir. So.
I'm looking forward to your work.
Oh yeah, I've got a couple of things published, but I don't consider myself a writer, but I write. And I can't help it. It's like art. It's like making art, You can't help what you do, can you? You can't help what you do.
The next question for you I've asked of Ayana, but if you had a question to pose to Ayana, what would it be? Not what would it be, what is it?
I guess, I think you've already asked it, which was about your future. Where do you see yourself going? Come on, you could be Fahamu. Fahamu said he was going to be famous. Damn if he didn't make fame. So, what is it? Where you going?
I'm trying to think how to word. I already know. My proclamation is I'm one of the greatest American artists of all time.
Right. Now, see,
And
that's
you
what
are.
I'm talking about.
And-
Yes. That's what I'm talking about.
For me, though, it may not necessarily equate to fame. I recognize that. My proclamation is I am an artist. You will know my work, but you may not know me, and that's okay. I aspire to be your favorite artist. I want to have my work seen and will be seen worldwide, and it will speak to generations, and it will be in textbooks. But how that plays out in terms of fame, I cannot say. But I am one of the greatest American artists of all times because I tell one of the greatest American stories of all times.
Right. I love it.
With that, we're going to open it up for some Q&A from the audience, and then I'll close out the conversation, and we'll have formal closeout of the program from Rhonda. Any questions? Candace?
Thank you both so much. My question is for Ayana. You spoke about hoping that each generation is getting better. I'd love to hear what is one or two things that you hope we're getting better at in this particular season.
I don't know if I'm wise enough to have an answer to that. That thought, that belief system rests on reality that we always want our children to be better than us. And like I was in the car with my son the other day, and I told him, I was trying to encourage him to read the New York Times, to read the paper more often. And am I coming through? And but I was telling him, I'm not worried about, just because you have to know where you come from and you have to know what's going on, you have to be aware. But I'm not like worried about the future in the sense of how that generation will be, because they have something that we don't have. I don't know what it is. They probably don't know what it is yet, but they have it. Now, in terms of the right now, I'm a Gen Xer, and I am very much interested in like generational archetypes. And I think that for Gen Xers and millennials, because we kind of come up in tandem, there's a wisdom that we carry because we have a connection to our history, but we also still have a bit of energy that I think we have to tap into and be courageous. We are very much like live and let live for the most part, and we have made our homes comfortable and fortified our communities to an extent, but I think we guys just got to dig in and go a little bit deeper with that and a little bit harder with that. And I think that will be our part. And I do, even beyond my 4, have to make sure we are pouring into the younger ones. Because there's still, technology is a thing and it's an issue in some ways, but we still have influence. They will still remember. And so, I don't know, those are my little flickers of thought with that. But I just have faith that there is something, because of the lived experiences of each generation. As long as we take the wisdom of the generation before, that's the key. We can't just like disregard. You gotta carry that. But if we take all of that together, we'll get better. It'll get better.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm really enjoying this master class. Could you speak to the issue of emotional labor in your work and self-care? Your topics and some of your work, when I viewed it, was just so emotional. I had to stand back for a moment. But as the artist, can you speak to that and what is that process? What does that look like if you find yourself sort of inundated emotionally and having to pull back or whatever your therapy is or your healing is to get back to the work? Please and thank you.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, that's a good question. I think it depends on what I'm working on. Sometimes things can make me very angry. As a matter of fact, I have a huge abstract painting that's not here. But in that painting, you'll find layers and layers and layers and layers of things that really were getting on my nerves at the time. And mainly it was about Gaza. I was having fits over what I was seeing in Gaza. It was driving me nuts. So the only place I could pour that energy into was in that painting. There are dead children in that painting. There are live children in that painting. There's every kind of chaotic moment that I could imagine the people of Gaza experiencing. I mean, I don't know what it would mean if someone just came and blew up, my kids. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means when people bomb a hospital and leave babies in the incubator to be eaten by dogs. That don't drive y'all crazy? I really thought I was gonna lose it. But I didn't. I kept painting and painting and painting and painting and painting. And inside that painting, there are layers and layers and layers and layers of emotion. So a lot of times I will use the painting itself, to release that emotion, especially if I'm doing abstracts. Now, if I'm working on people, that's a whole nother thing. But I tell you what, I have a portrait I've been working on since June. And, sometimes you can work on things and it's like, zip, it's done. This thing is taken forever because I'm trying to connect to the person emotionally and all of that. So, the symbols have to be real. They have to, the person that I'm doing the portrait of, they have to know that even though other people can't see what it is, they know what it is, So a lot of times, you have to, I just use my canvas to pour out, emotions. That and a good vodka and ginger ale.
Another question, one more. Oh, okay.
Good afternoon, ladies. Thank you very much. Mama Lynn, I want you to, if you could, elaborate on the I Know Who piece in there. I went and saw the exhibit the other day, and it really stood out to me. So the history, I'm a historian, and also love old photographs, and it really stood out to me. So what was it behind?
Okay, so that piece was from a solo show that I did at the Museum of Contemporary Art of Georgia before they moved into the new fancy building. But yeah, it would have been the visual of my thesis, but anyway, the universe, never mind. Okay, that piece is actually all digital. There's no, right, the photograph was scanned. I took the photograph of the flowers in my sister's yard, watermelons, butterfly, all that stuff is all digital. As a matter of fact, I think there were 6 pieces in that whole series of different, but it was all digital. By that time, I gave up. Okay, we're into digital. So it was just, it's an amalgamation. It's just a mashup of different layers of photographs. Now, what does it mean? Okay, so stereo propaganda basically just kind of challenged the stereotypes that were in stereo cards. I don't know if you're familiar with stereo cards. You sing Daughters of the Dust, they looking back, and right. Well, that was my thesis when I was in grad school, comparing stereo cards to African-American photographs, these stereotypical, cards, comparing them to actual family photographs. And so when you start getting into actual family photographs, you see something different. There's something very, very familiar. You know, it's not staged. There's no nothing. There's none of that. So one of the things that happens with those stereo cards is, if you've ever looked at them, all the pictures of black people, they have us in raggedy cars, raggedy wagons, broke down stuff. Like, we can't get from one place to another because our crap is always broke down. You know, that's one stereotype. There's so many, many more. They stereotyped everybody, women, I mean, you name it. So my idea was to invert the text on these things, okay? So if you look at the bottom, it says, as a little Alabama coon. That's what the original postcard said, the original stereo card. I changed the text. My daughter's voice comes out. She's right up there. And it says something about my mom. My mom says that I'm a beautiful flower. So who's telling me as a little Alabama coon? I know who. What does that mean? I know who. You know who. Whoever wrote this step. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that part, a lot of my stuff is about inverting ideas about what you see. You know? Yeah. Yeah. Aunt Jemima's disappeared. So is Uncle Ben. Where'd they go? I know where.
We have one question online, of course, from our esteemed founder, Fahamu. He could not be with us here today, but he did want to ask. Recently, the Studio Museum in Harlem announced their 2026 Curatorial Fellows cohort, which featured 7 women and 1 man. When it comes to curating and other professional roles in the art world, those positions are often very female-dominated. But the market still heavily skews towards male artists as practitioners. Today is International Women's Day. As our Flowers and Seeds honorees, can you talk about your experience as women in art, in the art world, and where women artists are still largely marginalized?
Can I talk about? Well, I'll say one thing first. I know that because I am a woman, and I know that because I'm a black woman, there are challenges that exist. At the same time, I know who I am, and I just walk and move with the belief that I personally am walking through doors and walking into opportunities that may astound people because I'm there. And I think both can be true and both are true, and I think that it's almost like, and part of the reason why some people have been able to transcend is holding on to that belief. It's going to be a constant fight. It is going to take persistence. And some things do take time, but I do think that we will get there. I know that some things start with early exposure too. And I'm looking at, again, this is more of an intergenerational conversation in my mind. I was looking on my daughter's school website, and the scholarships are mostly they're trying to attract black males for college because of the enrollment being down. So, okay, why is that? Then you have to go to, I remember when I was teaching, we would have the gifted classes. You could see some of the little black boys in the classes up until maybe 2nd grade, and then after that, they start to get weeded out. But why is that? And then it's a matter of exposure. If you don't know a thing exists, how could you even strive for it? And all of these things are happening and in place intentionally. Someone's doing a very, very good job. So I think that, again, that's that area, because Hamu has that question because he has that awareness. And I think that's where that wisdom that we have comes in trying to figure out how to bridge that gap between what we can bring in, or where we can bring our younger people into the conversation, and where we can start to bring about change in existing institutions. I don't know, I may be getting too far off here, but that's kind of how I look at it. It's like it's a pipeline thing that we have to address. You probably have more wisdom and insight on that.
No, I don't have any more wisdom, but I can tell you what I see. It's not surprising to me that women, that you have more women in curatorial roles. I think that, come on, black women, we just scholarly. We're just we're brainy, for the most part. I think that, this whole thing with men being dominant has always been, men have always pretty much dominated the visual part of that. I think it's changing. There was a time when you didn't even see black curators, or I didn't know of. There were very few black people in the arts, period. We were always in the arts, but in terms of people seeking us out and actually, wanting to see exhibits and by black people and, being inclusive, there are a lot of other groups out there that have been excluded, particularly indigenous people. I'm so happy I live where I live because I'm exposed to, that work, which is dominated, believe it or not, by women. At least what I've seen, So I don't know. It's kind of one of those questions that's kind of fluid.
It is.
It's kind of, it could be either or.
Well, I'm also thinking about something else, though. Audre Lorde has a quote: "You can't dismantle a master's house with the master's tools." Like, there's a certain. We can't rely on the system to make the changes that need to be made.
There you go. Exactly.
The system gonna do what the system was meant to do.
That's it.
It is very successful.
Yeah.
Right. It works.
It does.
It works exactly the way it's supposed to.
It's supposed to marginalize.
I think we have to, as a people, make decisions about what we enforce and encourage, and like supporting institutions that are trying to shift that dynamic, and supporting, applauding collectors. I don't know if there are collectors out here, but applaud, collectors play a major role in, you may not see the evidence of it now, but determining the significance and holding that catalog of work that's important. It tells a bigger story for the society. And so I think that we have to look to them. Now, I know you referenced the Studio Museum of Harlem. And then another thing in terms of there's so many different parts of this. And another thing about women in those roles, and I know I'm product of it. How many of us as black women are overeducated for the work we did? I had 2 master's degrees teaching K-12 art and wouldn't get paid over, the grade 1, right? So that's a whole thing, because we spent so many years trying to prove ourselves worthy, capable, educated enough, and then we look around, we're overeducated. I mean, we like to learn, don't get me wrong, but still not being compensated to the level of the effort that you put in. Again, you cannot look to the system, because the system works. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do.
And I want to add just a tad to that, because I I was thinking, it's funny how your brain works. All of you sitting there, and all of a sudden something appears. And I was thinking about some family members that had transitioned. We've had a lot of deaths in our family, and one of them was a cousin of mine, he was brilliant as a kid. He was a little boy. He used to take clocks apart and try to put them back together and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. But he was smart. Several of these kids, very smart. But as a kid, they had labeled him as bad. It's like my dog. They put a sticker on your file, and it says bad. And from that point on, as you're going through the system, bad follows you. Okay. Family. Here come that bad boy. That boy just as bad as he can be. He's so bad. And the next thing you know, you've got kids that are growing up, thinking they're bad. This kid never I think he graduated from high school, but he never really became the person that I knew he could become had he had not been stamped as bad. Now, about institutions, I think that we're going to have to build them ourselves, period. You can't sit back and wait for folk to recognize you. You just build it yourself, like here. And what is being seen in the future. That way you can control who writes, who exhibits, all those things. You control that because you own it.
I have a thought to share. I think often as women, we are left to do the things that we're deemed to be good at. And so if we're good at maintaining households and running our households, then we are asked to be the organizers of the work. And I think when we look at numbers at a place like the Studio Museum, and 7 of the 8 curatorial fellows are women, at what point do we push back on the work we're willing to do? So we step up and we say, okay, we'll be the note taker. Okay, we'll send out the meeting invite. Okay, we will do this organizational thing because we're good at it. But I think it leaves our brethrens not necessarily in a position to learn or step up and do those things. And while we're doing those very curatorial things, while we're doing those very administrative tasks, it leaves space for the men to be applauded and elevated as the artists who are being shown, as the artists are being purchased. So I think there's a little work on our part to do the things we want to do. If you want to do it, fine. If you don't want to do it, fine. Do what it is that we want to do. And to your point around collectors, we do have a voice in what we purchase, in what we elevate, in what we say is valuable. And we can be a bit more discerning about those purchases and the things we do. Didn't mean to have the last thought.
Kind of brought it all together.
And I don't think I took the opportunity just to briefly introduce myself. My name is Esohe Galbreath. I'm one of the founding board members of ADAMA. I am grateful that our esteemed visionary leader tapped me to host this conversation today. I currently serve as the Chief Operating Officer for ADAMA. It's a new role. I'm happy to be in it. And this conversation has absolutely been everything that I hoped it would be. Thank you.
Can I say something?
Of
Can
course.
I say one more thing? I just want to acknowledge some folks in the audience, namely Akua McDaniel from Spelman. That's where I cut my first eye teeth. It was at Spelman. I was a Spelman girl. But she was over the art department there. Miss Janelle Holloway, Lev Mills. I mean, those were my early, that's where I cut my eye teeth, was at Spelman. So I just wanted to acknowledge, thank you so much for coming out. Saw the book signings. What's the name of the book? A Dream Deferred. It's out now. Go get your copy. You're sitting here with the author. Also, Sue Ross. I know everybody knows Sue Ross, so I won't try to introduce her. And then I see Angeline. Hey. Warren Fletcher, again. Amazing photographer. Thank you so very much. This has just been beautiful. Appreciate it.
Thank you, all you guys. Can we get another round of applause? This has been great. It's been great. Thank you, ladies. Now we're a little bit over, but again, if you haven't had a chance to check out the exhibit, please do so. It truly is amazing work. I just have one other update to share with you guys. For our next salon, we are really excited. We are going to have Sibyl Campbell. He's the author of Sky Full of Elephants. If you have not read that book, I am one of those that is on my shelf to read. I'm excited to have him here, and he will be in conversation with Fahamo. As always, continue to support us. Continue to help, all of these exhibits, all the things that we're doing are free. So your donation, your support to us are truly, truly helpful. Continue to follow us. We are on Instagram at ADAMA_ATL, and also visit our website at ADAMAATL.org. So again, thank you everyone. Enjoy, have a great evening and a great week.